Oh man, what do we have here? MCT oil, Kerrygold butter, Organic Valley pastured butter with high butter fat content, and some ketone testing strips. Man, isn't that the complete keto bullshit kit? Let me talk to you for a second. First of all, I'm well aware that there's a difference in omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, and that the American Heart Association kind of messed up, told us all that we should be eating margarine for some reason. Sorry, there's a lot of crap in my fridge. I'm not the only one that lives here. And they were under this impression that animal fats were a real problem, and so we should all have vegetable fats, and they screwed up all our fat profiles. I know about that. I know about the research that's being done on MCT oil, and I'm not going to tell you that some of these things aren't good. You know? Yeah, I absolutely believe that if you have the money and you can afford it, grass-fed beef products are better than corn-fed, confined animal feeding operation beef products. But are they keto? I mean, I see so much recommendations for things like bulletproof coffee and MCT oil that I feel like if you're not drinking MCT oil, you're not keto. But that's not true at all. You don't need keto. You don't need MCT oil. This isn't necessary. The only kind of necessary thing that was even on that list is I don't know how to tell people to be sure that they're in ketosis without those strips. They have a really hard time seeing if foods give them a problem. Molly, go on out. If they don't have those strips. So I say the strips provide excellent biofeedback. And there's all kinds of people that get upset because those strips could be this color or that color. And if your strip isn't just the color that everybody else is, if it's not totally dark, I guess you're doing ketosis wrong. My dog is barking. We're going to go on the tour of the house now to get away from the dog. He had a seizure this morning, so I know more about MCT oil than you might think. He's had 3 seizures today. So some people are on the ketogenic diet or MCT oil for that reason. In fact, Buzz is on a Purina-inspired food that happens to be also high in MCT oil. So if Purina's looking at it for dog seizures, I'm sure people that are looking at a ketogenic diet to help them with their epilepsy might want to consider MCT oil. But ketosis is a natural body process that happens when a deficit of glucose arrives and body fat is present. It doesn't require a mixture of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. It doesn't require MCT oil of any kind. Now, I'm not saying there aren't health benefits to MCT oil. I'm saying let's keep our topics separate. If you're a big advocate of MCT oil or grass-fed beef, that's fine. And I believe there are lots of reasons, lots of common sense reasons, that things like a cow that's an herbivore should eat grass rather than eat seeds, because cows don't eat corn. They're ruminants. They eat grass and browse and tree limbs to some extent. Now, you might assume that I don't actually know what I'm talking about, but I actually administer a forum with over 1,700 members in it, of which many of those are members of the Organic Valley Co-op in the Midwestern region of the United States, and they provide one of the butters I showed you, a pasture-fed, grass-raised butter. So I've talked to farmers about cow health. I've talked to farmers who've talked to the nutritionists that try to push their products. I've talked to farmers that have talked to people purchasing for high-end restaurants and stuff. The quality of those items is fantastic. So if you're living a life of privilege, by all means, get some of that shit. It's fine. But on the other hand, realize that keto as a natural body process doesn't come with a sales campaign. So people aren't going to be driving you in here with advertisements by the thousands unless they can sell you some shit. And some of that shit that they sell you is exogenous ketone supplements, MCT oil, Kerrygold butter. Like, I can't make it through a ketogenesis video without somebody picking up a package of Kerrygold butter. And look, I love grass-fed cows. Grass-fed butter, to me, tastes better. But if we're going to sit here and act like everybody needs to be on all of these optimal products, not things that are going to facilitate their weight loss, but things that would be really optimizing. I hear all these complaints about, oh, that has this kind of sweetener, oh, it has a starch in it, or whatever. Let's be real. Ketosis has some profound health benefits and doesn't really require that you do it all perfectly. And a lot of people are saying, well, what's the harm? Some of us are trying to keep strict, and I don't appreciate because I'm trying to stay strict, and you're just making me feel bad. Look, lady, you're probably making other people feel bad. For example, real world example, since I've been doing this whole Keto Dick live broadcast thing, I had somebody hit me up that lives in Bangladesh. I'm not very worldly. I don't know everything about everywhere. I've been outside the country. I've been to many countries. But I don't know a lot about Bangladesh other than to know that poverty is an issue there. So when this lady sent me a message from the store saying, I can't find anything but this kind of oil or that kind of oil, and I was told vegetable oils aren't keto, and here everybody fries in canola oil. Hey man, canola oil isn't good for you. I know that. It's not the ideal oil. Vegetable oils aren't ideal, but they're acceptable. And the main intervention that we're making here is a high-carb lifestyle and diet transitioning into a low-carb lifestyle and diet, hopefully attaining ketosis regularly and leading to a fat-adapted state. And none of that requires that you stop eating vegetable oil. That is an unrelated, separate health issue. And so now I've got this poor woman in Bangladesh who's at her third or fourth store trying to look for a perfect keto oil, you know, because she's thinking about frying in sesame oil or avocado oil, or really stretching her budget because she believes that these things are necessary for keto. There's nothing wrong with cooking in olive oil for keto. There's nothing wrong with cooking with canola or vegetable oil. And I encourage everybody to spend more money on food. One of the things you have to look at when you look at the comparison of the Italian Mediterranean diets and the French diet versus the American diet and the Japanese diet, and you see that Japan and France and Italy have lower rates of these metabolic issues and digestive issues and stuff like that, what you find is that they all spend considerably more money on food as a percentage of their total budget. Americans spend something like 8% of their net income on food, whereas in France it's 21%. And that's across the board. That's rich people, that's poor people. In France, people spend up to a fifth of their disposable income on their food, and in America we spend less than $1 in every $10 on it. So if you're looking at your health, I don't want to discourage anyone from exploring MCT oil or grass-fed butter, but there is a difference between things that are just generally good for your health and things that are relevant to ketosis. And when you keep in mind what kind of suggestions you're going to make to people, you have to keep in mind that your suggestions might be to control celiacs or weight loss or Crohn's or bloating or epilepsy, and theirs might be different. So while MCT oil might help you with your goals, especially if your goals are ketosis to control epilepsy, if you're not epileptic, medium chain triglycerides, have some research about improving your body composition, and I think we'd all like to look better naked. But an odorless, flavorless oil that you're going to drizzle on stuff, that doesn't really have a place in normal diets. People don't normally drizzle invisible, tasteless oils on their food. And MCT oil doesn't hold up well to heat, so you really can't cook with it that well. So you're adding it as a supplement after the fact. Now, if you're happy with your MCT oil, or if you're convinced that your MCT oil is giving you some sort of neurological edge or something like that, then by all means, drink your MCT oil. But what I'm talking about is there are a lot of people, and I don't want to disparage them. A lot of them are hardworking people. A lot of these people are my relatives. A lot of them come from economically disadvantaged countries or countries with fucked governments I'm glad I never have to deal with. And I'm not going to be critical to how much money those people have to throw down on their food. Because the bottom line is you've got to avoid carbohydrates, and everything else is fucking window dressing. So to those people that, you know, want to talk about their expensive protein bars or their pro granola or their MCT oil or their Kerrygold butter, more power to you. You know, if you have the money and it makes you feel good to spend more money on foods that are produced more sustainably or in a more healthy way, that they spend more money on the packaging or transportation or processing or manufacturing of that food, and you think that's good for you, then by all means do it. But at the same time, don't have everybody in the forum that comes in here thinking that if they're not doing everything in pure beef tallow that's non-hydrogenated, that they self-rendered. I mean, I could come at everybody in this forum for not making your own broth. Making a broth is a wonderful thing to do. You should learn how to make stock. But these people that are doing keto, yeah, supplementing with bone broth or bone stock is a common recommendation. And yeah, it would be better if you made it yourself. But there are people who don't have hours to skim and boil down stock. And there are people that don't have access. For example, she couldn't find peanut oil in Bangladesh. So you got to couch your recommendations some and realize that weight loss and obesity and epilepsy and cancer and tumors, all the things that bring people to ketogenics, are issues for poor people too. Or poor people with just limited access to food. Maybe they live on an island. Maybe they're in one of the urban deserts we hear about with only bodegas and small grocery stores. I live where I have a Wegmans with a big old organic section. I have a Trader Joe's. I've got a lot of privilege inherent in that. And I also, as you see me walking around a 2-story house, have enough money to buy MCT oil. Now, why do I have MCT oil? Just because you guys do. Wanted to try it, looked at the research, have a friend with epilepsy, have a dog with epilepsy. Thought I would check it out. But do I think it's required for keto? Has it been a big part of my keto story? In the past 35 days, I've had 1 dose of MCT oil. 1. Okay, so that's not how I got to ketosis. I got to ketosis with real foods. So what I want to talk about is things like chuck roast. Somebody post a chuck roast recipe, because there are some really beleaguered, fatty pieces of meat that have been unpopular for 20 or 30 years, and if you talk to Anthony Bourdain and people that know how to actually cook, those are delicious pieces of meats. So what I worry about is, like, if we're going to talk about what's optimal for health, how come everybody's slanging some kind of shit you can buy in a bottle? You got to get this protein bar, you got to buy this MCT oil. Why aren't more people talking about how to cook with chuck roast? What to do with a pork shoulder? You know, whole cuts of meat that involve natural fats just built right in them with robust nutrient profiles. I'd like to see more people talk about how to get more keto foods into already keto foods. You know, I saw somebody earlier to make a recommendation that, you know, they can put cheese on top of their tuna and cook it. I saw a recommendation earlier that somebody says, well, if you only have chicken breast, slice it in half and top it like a pizza after it's cooked and put it under the broiler and have chicken pizza. Things like that. Whole foods. You know, recommendations on how to cook, how to eat, how to prepare food better, how to use more raw and unprocessed foods to cook with. But overwhelmingly, I see recommendations for granola bars that have low net carbs and protein shakes and MCT oil. And I have a protein shake at my house. I like EAS Myoplex because it's also a multivitamin and it's cost effective. I don't use it much anymore. I have a half a serving with my girlfriend after MMA sometimes. But there is entirely too much slinging of product shit in this forum. You guys do not need Kerrygold butter. I endorse Kerrygold butter. I think it's great. If you have the money and you know where to buy it, by all means get some. But for those of you that are like, oh, I guess I can't do keto because I can only afford vegetable oil in a shop at Walmart. Dude, you can be keto at Walmart. In fact, one of the videos I found that I did not do is Butter Bob goes to the grocery store, and Butter Bob's a keto guy, and Butter Bob takes you on a tour through the grocery store. I'm going to link to that down below. Look for that, Butter Bob's grocery store tour. And he talks about greens. There's a whole section of the store that almost never gets mentioned in this keto forum because they're all pure carbs. But for those of you that have bad keto poops, like my last video, get some greens in there. So please, just think about other people a little bit. Their goals might be different than yours. Their resources might be different from yours. They might live in a different country. They might be vegan. They might be Muslim. They might have celiac disease. And some of these people get so hype on like, oh, MCT oil is the only way. And Maybe. I'm glad it works for you if it works for you. But be careful slinging all the products and the crap that you have to buy for a keto lifestyle. If I could recommend one product for keto, it would be Keto Sticks. My second favorite keto item is probably almond flour. And my third favorite keto item would probably be erythritol, which is controversial, but quite frankly, there's so many people that need some kind of sweets that it's the sweetener I would endorse. But if you're going to go out to the store, before you hoard up all this stuff in your cart, get yourself a chuck roast and some fatty meat. Learn to cook a chicken thigh, first of all. Add in some lettuce, parsley's great, cilantro. Herbs have a lot of nutrients in them. I know people don't consider them food, but throw some herbs in your shit. But after you've put that stuff in your cart, Keto Sticks, which you can order off Amazon, or they should be available at CVS or Rite Aid or at Walmart. I know Walmart has a generic brand. They should be with diabetic testing supplies because ketones for people that aren't trying to do ketosis are a sign of dangerous problems for diabetics. So they keep them around. And then, like I said, almond flour, so you can have a flour that is keto friendly, and Swerve, because if you're going to eat something like chocolate, like you can get extremely dark chocolate, then it's bitter, then you melt it, then you add Swerve, you have a sugar alcohol, you have a sweetened chocolate now you can do things with. There's a lot of basic cooking that'll build off the idea of having some access to an approved sweetener and a flour. So I think almond flour is a good solution for that, and I think erythritol is the best of the fake sweeteners. If you can't get it, go with stevia. Some people think that's bitter. But again, telling somebody that they have to like run out to the store and buy a whole grocery basket full of specialty items just so that they can be keto, when the truth is keto is just about a carb restriction. That's not buying things. That's not buying carbs. That's not eating carbs. Keto isn't a diet where you have to necessarily get things. It's where you have to not get things.